I'm just I'm just going to turn it over to you
Sure. Perfect.
and let you tell everyone a little bit about your project to
Sure.
introduce it, the InStep project, and then go and do your wonderful things with data and impress us all.
Okay. Well, I hope there's the impressed part, but I definitely am very excited. I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces. I just appreciate people coming to hear about the opportunities at InStep. Like I know everybody's working super hard, and then to do this on top of your normal day, we just appreciate you so much. So thank you so much for giving us your time today. And so what I'm going to do is I want to just kind of give you a tour of our platform and just show you the different opportunities that are there. And this could be very informal. We have a small enough crowd that I think if people have questions, you should feel free to put them in the chat. But I also think that, we have a small enough group that it doesn't bother me if people want to ask questions throughout. I'll do my best to answer the questions. And if I can't answer your question, I will get back to you. Like you can give me your contact information and I'll get back to you. But I'm going to start sharing my screen. I only have one slide to show. I know that for those of you that know me, that sounds hard to believe, but I really only have one slide to show. And then I'm just going to have you guys log into the platform if you haven't already logged in. And I'm going to just share my screen and walk you around. And then I do feel like we should do something with data. That's always one of my favorite things to do. So we will work with a data activity that will be really informal. Again, we'll kind of go through it together, and people can ask their own questions, and maybe someone wants to share some of the things they're finding. So I'm going to share. I just want to acknowledge, first of all the wonderful people that I work with, because you're getting ready to see a platform that has been in the making for at least 4 years. So first I wanted to just acknowledge that I work with a whole group of wonderful people. So my colleague Holly Lynn, I think, will be logging in later. I've told her to just jump in if she's here. So she might have some things that she wants to interject. So I wanted to recognize her. Emily Thrasher is another colleague who is a thinking partner and has led a lot of the development around the platform. So I just wanted to recognize both Holly Lynn and Emily's work on this. And we have a great team of people. I just wanted to recognize Bruce, Adrian, and Maddie. They're awesome, and they really help us do this work, and we do this work together. And then we've built our platform with a group at RTI. So I wanted to acknowledge Patrick, Britta, and Andres, because they really have developed. We've designed things with them, but they're leading the development, or led the development of the platform. I'm not used to the platform being public and open to the public yet. So this platform, like I said, it has been in the making for about 4 years now. And so at different stages along the way, we did try to get input from teachers and other people other than our team that are in statistics education, or people that develop online platforms, to try to get feedback at different stages on, first of all, what should go in here. Like Chris is one of the people that we talked to. I think we've even probably talked to Rebecca about this, and then even some others at ASA, in fact. So we've really tried to take the feedback we've gotten from leaders in statistics education and online professional development, and then we've taken what we've heard, very importantly, from teachers and district leaders, to try to make revisions and get the platform where it is today. So we just recently opened it to the public. It's free. This isn't a situation where we say is free and then you get to a point and there's a paywall. Right now, we still have support to keep this going. And so I also wanted to acknowledge not just my colleagues, but the NSF. So the NSF has funded this project and supported the development of this project. So one of the things I think we try to pride ourselves on is that we try to use other materials that are open materials. Oftentimes we use things with a common license, so that Creative Commons license, excuse me, so that people can take the things that they need and use them in their own context. So I'm going to actually give you an opportunity before I start showing you the platform to actually log in and register. It will ask for your name and your email, because you need to get that to get your ID. And then it'll ask you some other things. If you don't have time to answer those things right now, you can put that on hold, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So if you go to instepwithdata.org, go ahead and log in if you're interested in seeing what we have. Again, it is a free account, and I'm going to show you. I've gone to the site so many times, it knows. Again, instepwithdata.org. And you'll get to a page that looks like this. And so I'm just going to pause just for a couple of minutes. And I will let people go ahead and log on if you haven't yet. And by a show of hands, was anybody already registered before this? I'm just kind of curious to see if we're all going to be new users. Okay, so I know some of you, have been involved in helping us design this platform, so you've probably seen other versions of it. So that makes me very excited to know we've got some people that are seeing it for the first time. And I'll give you about one more minute, and then if anyone feels like you want me to wait just a little bit, I'm happy to wait, but I'm also happy to kind of just start talking with some of the background stuff, and if you need to have a few more minutes to register and get in. Okay, if you want me to hold off and wait, you can either send me a message right now, or if you feel comfortable putting up, a hand or a stop sign, like some kind of reaction, I will pause a moment. If not, I'll let you continue that process as I start. Okay. It looks like a thumbs up means I'm taking that as yes, we're great. Great. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate the communication. So one of the things that we think is different about the professional development that's available at our site is that we are trying to make it more personalized. So, there are opportunities, and we think there's lots of great opportunities to get online professional learning. And we try to extend and link to other places where we think those things are happening. On our platform, we try to personalize this related to people's goals. And we have some personalization surveys that are in the platform, and I'll talk about those in a minute. We really are focused on trying to help teachers build on their expertise to teach statistics and data. But in honesty, we are statistics educators. We're all also math educators more broadly. We're all former math teachers. So our lens from our platform and the things that we build really are coming from a statistics education background. So if someone in computer science who is a data scientist, we're developing, a platform like this, it's going to look a little different. We do try to add in things that we know and understand about data science. So I do think there are benefits if you have colleagues that like a science teacher or, someone that teaches in a humanities where they're looking at problems that involve data. They definitely could benefit from some things here too. So we do try to add elements of data science. But I just wanted to say that the math teacher who teaches stats is really kind of the person that I think benefits the most from the platform. And we also think that teachers in grades 6 through 12, although people below and people that teach introductory stats at a collegiate level, they definitely could benefit from some of the things that are here. So you can click around and go to some of these things that I don't talk about, but I want to just highlight, I think, what I feel like are some of the important things to know. One of the things that was important to us was thinking about, as classroom teachers, what are the things I need to do in my day-to-day instruction with my students that are going to help me build their statistical thinking or their thinking about data. So there are some statistics educators and researchers that have done a lot of work thinking about, so if I design a classroom or a learning environment, what does that learning environment look like, and what are the things I need to think about? And so we've built on that work, and we have kind of modified that work to organize our platform. So for me as a classroom teacher, and even when I teach at a collegiate level, it's really important for me to think about how these things interconnect. So for me, it's important to think about, so what are the different practices that we use in statistics and data? What are those core central statistical ideas? If you hover over, you'll see like a quick short description of what these things are. So again, core to what's important to us is we want students to have this foundational understanding of what is it involved, so what are the habits of mind, what are their dispositions, what are the ways of thinking that we need to develop for our students to have this robust statistical reasoning. What are those important understandings related to key statistics and data content? What are the tasks that I'm going to choose for my classroom or for my course as a teacher or instructor if I want to develop these ideas? And of course, we're all here because we're interested in data, right? So developing the types of knowledge and the skills that you need for us around using real or authentic data in hopes of motivating students. And if you know of any of the work that Holly Lynn and I have done in the past and our team, we really promote this idea of the importance of investigating data for students. And then if you believe that it's important for students to have data investigations, and we often try to encourage this idea of larger data, and large, I use the quotes because large is it depends on your student's experience, right? So I remember back when I got my first graphing calculator and was very excited when I could put data in and I could put the rows in. And my case size was still, it might have been the number of students in my classroom. We might have had 1 or 2 attributes. It was usually height and arm span, and those kinds of things. So for my students having that experience, having an experience with data where there's or not very large, but many, many more cases, right? Maybe hundreds of cases. And now they're looking at 5, 6, 7 attributes, for those younger students, that's larger data. And it's going to look different depending on your context. But that means you're probably needing technology tools to investigate questions or problems using large data. And then we also know that it's really important to work on promoting discourse, but then more specifically, what does argumentation look like when we're asking students to make claims, to make database arguments, and then how do we just in general facilitate those productive discussions? And then we know that it's very important for teachers thinking about assessing their students' thinking. So when you go to our platform, we try to develop learning modules around these core dimensions or aspects of teaching. What you'll notice once you get inside is that each of these dimensions is not completely done. So we continue to build as we can, and we hope that we can continue to build more and more and more. And so the personalization, like I said, we think is very unique. I think a lot of people are doing these other things that, that they're making sure that there's resources for teachers, that these things are vetted by experts. We're going to look at a data investigation in a moment. And then what I also just want to highlight is there are 3 ways, and I think that are opportunities to learn, or there's 3 ways to engage with our materials. And I'll show you that in a moment. What I'm going to do though, is I'm going to log in. And so now that I have my username, which is my email, and my password, I don't remember this one. I have to go back and snag this one real quick. Oops, no. Okay, so this is one of the things that I wanted to highlight that we found to be really useful in our site, is that when you actually came in for the first time, you probably saw something that looked more, if I go back to my dashboard, you might have seen something that looked, oh, it's not here now. Hold on a second. That looks more like this. Sorry, I thought I had opened that. So we encourage you to actually go through these different personalization surveys and think of it as the more you complete, it gives us more information about you. And then what we've done behind the scenes is we have a logic model that maps your results from completing these personalization surveys to different places in our platform. So these personalization surveys, some of them are quite short. The first one, it is collecting some information about you, and we do use information about what are your personal goals, like why are you here, what grade are you teaching, those kinds of things. We also measure your confidence, and then we also measure and try to get information about some practices related to teaching statistics and data. And then you might be familiar with the last one. The last one is the most time consuming. It's the locus exam. And the locus exam, which some of you may have used with students, will actually give you an idea of your content knowledge. And what's really nice about this is it aligns with Gay's levels of sophistication in terms of your statistical thinking. So it does provide information related to like level A, level B, level C as well. But again, think of it as the more you do, this gives us information, and then it gives you recommendations. So I wanted to show you, this is what you probably have seen. And I encourage you, if you want to use our platform, to go in and do these. And then this is an example of a person who has already done some of these. So this teacher has done some of the personalization surveys. So when they go to their dashboard, it looks a little different. So you can see they still see this welcome message. But if you look on the right, it says, based on your data from your personalization surveys, the following are the top recommendations for you. So this person may not have done them all, but they've done enough that one of the things that we're recommending is for them to do roller coaster, what is statistics and data science, and what is data for secondary classrooms. And so one way to get started is if you go in, you can do the personalization surveys, and then you can follow these recommendations. And a lot of teachers that we've worked with so far have indicated to us that it was helpful to have these, and that they did use those in order to decide what to do. And so one of the things that I also want to highlight that sometimes is not found by teachers until they start clicking around. So this is teacher T7. So if I click on T7, I get to see T7's profile. I promise I'm clicking on, oh, there we go. And so when I click on, everything's very slow. T7, you can see that these were T7's goals. So T7 said their first goal was, I want to improve my ability to collect and use real world data. I want to improve my ability to lead productive discussions, and I want to deepen my ability to help students use data. And so you can see how those hopefully align with the recommendations they're getting, but it also is based on, this teacher also completed the confidence. And so the SET survey, which measures self-efficacy or confidence to teach statistics. So the nice thing is on the profile, you get to see, oh, this is where I am right now in terms of how confident I am. The other teachers that were in here that took the same survey, this is where they are. And again, the nice thing is it's not that you just get an overall score, but you also get these scores related to like the levels of sophistication, which is kind of nice because it gives you a place where then you can think about where you might want to grow more. And then this person also completed completed locus. So they also can see what their score was. They scored 57%, and the mean is 71%, but this was for a group of 323 teachers. So we really encourage people to do the personalization surveys. Again, these recommendations could be very helpful. The other nice thing is you've got this information here where you can go back and you can look to see how you initially did. But then there are opportunities later to redo some of these surveys. So you can also have opportunities to measure growth, just if you're checking on your own. And so another exciting way to engage, and I'll come back to the dashboard in a minute, is some of you have probably been clicking around already and you found the Learning Hub. So the Learning Hub is another way to come in and just see everything. And so on the Learning Hub, this is what I was saying earlier about there's 3 opportunities to learn. So one of the opportunities to learn I talked about at the very beginning was through these modules connected to these dimensions of teaching. And for example, if I was really interested and I wanted to know, remember one of the recommendations from the teachers, it was about going into this module. If I wanted to know about data and statistical practices, what I can see here is that there's 2 modules. I could have gone straight from the recommendation in the profile, but you can also access it this way. And so the way that the modules are set up is that we have these essential materials, and we have extended resources as well. And so you can go through this in a linear path. You can go through this and pick whatever path you want. You could go through it and just select out things that make sense to you. So there's no path that you have to choose, but we've tried to keep features in that help you track what you've done. So you can see that here, this is an essential. We're using a video to help talk about, what is statistics? Well, why is statistics important? Why is it important to understand statistics and data in the world that we live in now? And so you see, as you complete that, if we were watching the video and then we would click mark as complete, it keeps track of your progress over here. So people can go through these in whatever order they want. And you can watch as much or engage in as much as you want. And then the nice thing is, if I go back to the dashboard now, one of the things that's really helpful, we think, is that the dashboard has now recorded my progress. So this is really helpful too if you don't necessarily follow a linear path, where you can go back and you can, the next time you start, click on resume. But it's also just another way for you to see, oh, I've completed like a little over a third of this, right? And as you complete more things, more cards will appear for you. So if I go back to the Learning Hub, I'm over clicking. I'm just going to go back here. I meant to go back here. So we've talked about the modules and how to get resources in those modules. And then the thing I have not talked about yet, and I'm only going to say a small bit about the second opportunity to learn, is we have these micro credentials here. And so right now we have one, and we're getting ready to add another. But micro credentials are opportunities for teachers to show their competence around understanding specific knowledge and skills around teaching statistics and data science. So the way that we've structured all of these is you have this overview. You can see these four main three instructions here, and then you can start clicking into the questions. So there's 4 questions, and the way they're all structured is you see the question, you see the rubric that we would use to score it, and then you see a place where you can add your responses. And then what you can do is add them here. You can save and continue on to the next. And so forth and so on. And then as you click through these, what'll happen is you'll have a chance to save these in the end. So I think something that's also really important is notice that under this first number 1, we've linked resources and we've linked things that we think will help you in completing the micro credential. So that's one of the things that I think is helpful. And I'm not going to say anything more about micro credentials, but I just wanted people to know that that's one of the opportunities to learn. So through our modules, through our micro credentials, and then I think the thing that people get really excited about is through our data investigations. And so some of you may have seen us talk about roller coasters in the past. And so even if you've seen us present on roller coasters, or share data on roller coasters, we have updated this file. And sorry, I'm just now getting to what's in the chat, and we can talk about some of these. There was a question that we can come back to about micro credentials if we have time, but hopefully others will add to the chat if they've had that experience. I just didn't want to ignore the chat. But we have this is a different roller coaster investigation. And so one of the really nice things that I said earlier is this gives teachers the opportunity. So it gives you the opportunity, your colleagues, other teachers, to experience investigating data. And we, in this first module, also introduce a data investigation process that is a little bit different than what you've seen in GAZE or some of the other materials where there's a 4-phase statistical problem solving process or a 4-phase PCAI model. So one of the newer things, again, even if you've seen our materials before, is not only are you engaging with a new roller coaster data set that's large, it was all the roller coasters that were in operation at the time in the spring of, I think, 2021. You also get the opportunity to work through a data investigation process. And then we also try to link to other materials or resources that might help you. So like, here's a resource that might help, but then there are resources that are very specific to teaching. So for example, when we enacted this with students, these are videos that we show or similar videos that we show. So we try to add in the pieces that we think might be helpful. Or here, there's some materials in another module related to launching a statistical task. So I think this gives you just a flavor, and I hope you go through, and I hope you take the opportunity to take advantage of these resources, of these three main opportunities to learn. I want to pause for a moment before we go into looking at some data to ask two things. One, are there just questions in general that people have about the platform as you've been clicking around and as I've been talking? So I'm happy to just take any general questions, and feel free to either you can put them in the chat, or again, we're such a small group, I hope people feel free to, you can also ask the question, but I wanted to give some space for that before we move on. There's so many other great things in the platform, but
and I came in about 10 minutes ago, and I did not want to interrupt Jima, and just
and so that was my second part, Holly Lynn. I was gonna ask if you wanted to add anything, but I thought I'd let people ask any questions first.
No. Yeah, I just wanted to say hello to everybody, and that I did come in quiet as a mouse. So I'd like maybe to ask, and I don't know if this is the right place to ask this question, of thinking about you and the teachers you work with. How might you envision this being useful for yourself and or other teachers that you work with? What are some of the benefits or the obstacles that might be in the way of taking advantage of this online platform? Yeah,
Should I just, okay, so I don't see any obstacles. It looks great. I am probably going to retire in the next year, like 1 more year to go. And it's very hard to find a high school statistics teacher that really loves it and knows it well enough to teach it with some enthusiasm. So this would be a really good thing that I would recommend to my successor to go through. I'm going to go through it myself too, but for someone who probably has little experience, this would be really good.
Right. Yeah, I can't prove this exactly, but I suspect that a lot of the teachers I know get very attached to the district provided curriculum at some level, and a very kind of, here's some questions, answer the questions, a very like mathematical oriented kind of statistics teaching that's not really investigative. I suspect that investigations overflight to some teachers.
I mean, there's lots of reasons, right? We can think of reasons that people don't do more investigations. Teachers have standards that they have to teach for certain courses. Certain standards are tested. Some standards are tested more frequently than others, right? So then teachers say, well, it's a time issue. There's so many reasons. It's never a judgment about why people do not or do use an investigative approach. And I think I had tried to hint at this earlier. I do think that that's the highlight of what you could, it's not the only thing that you could get here, but I think when you're, talking about the younger teacher or the teacher that's not experienced or not confident to teach statistics, I think one of the places to start, right, is it's either doing an investigation or it's going to that that module that really helps us to start to think about what you're talking about in terms of an investigative approach. So even these two modules right here, there's lots of other great ways to forge a path.
Yeah, and Jima may or may not have mentioned this. I know I came in late, so if I repeat something, I'm very sorry. That if somebody comes in and they haven't done any of the personalization surveys, the top two things that we recommend are the roller coaster data investigation and the first module in the data and statistics practices, because we feel just knowing what we know anecdotally and from research about teachers' kind of comfort level, that if you're just coming in, those are probably two good places to get your feet wet and to get started thinking about this. So
yeah, this is one I showed earlier, and I might not have highlighted that as much, but I showed an example of where someone had not done a personalization survey. So as Holly Lynn said, their recommendations were US roller coasters, and then doing that first data investigation, and then that one of those modules I was pointing to.
And of course, they don't have to take those recommendations, but yeah, so but yeah, and as we were developing this, and I'm sure Jima highlighted this, or it probably came out, even if it wasn't said explicitly, but we're not about teaching a particular curriculum or teaching a particular course. And so districts that are implementing a particular course might have, or if you're teaching AP statistics as a particular course, there are specific trainings you can go to that are very targeted at those courses. But our materials are trying to kind of cut across and to think about things bigger of what are just good, what makes a good statistics and data classroom, no matter what course you're in, and how can we help you get better at that?
And if you go to and you look at like our actual central ideas, like right now we have two modules. So when I was saying earlier, we're still building. I mean, the hope would be that if you went into comparing distributions, you would find where you are perhaps with your students, and you could hopefully take some of the things here and you might be able to adapt them. But right, we are not going to build all the content you need, especially for specific courses. We would love to do that, but we would need more.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the questions I also wanted to ask, and then we're going to look at maybe a little bit of data. I was thinking of some of one of the data files in the U.S. Census investigations, Holly Lynn. But one of the other questions I had for teachers was, so Holly Lynn asked the question about like, how could this be used? I'm actually even really curious about, what are the types of resources and materials that you're looking for? So for those of you that are interested in learning online, what exactly are you looking for? What would you hope would be in a platform like ours in terms of supporting your professional growth to teach statistics or data?
I will jump right in on that one. The frustration that I have as an AP statistics teacher and somewhat as a college stat teacher is working with colleagues, especially in the high school, who have no strong background in statistics and therefore don't want to incorporate it into their curriculum at all. And I would love to see more kind of, here is the intersection between algebra and statistics. Here's the intersection between geometry and statistics. So maybe we do a probability unit and we talk about geometry, or maybe we do a sampling unit and we kind of tie it into algebra. And building those kind of, I mean, it's the same kind of thing, but more targeted towards like the specific curriculums that are not a stat class.
Right.
And trying to tie that material in, I think would be super valuable to teachers who are not interested generally in statistics.
Was anyone else at the Data Science for Everyone webinar recently, where it was about thinking about algebra and how you can, and they had a great title, but it was really about thinking about how you could tie data and relate it to what you're doing in your algebra class, whatever level of algebra. But that's an example where they were doing really great things. And I mean, I'm hoping we can add more materials like that. It's important to hear that that's what teachers need. And I definitely will keep that, on our list of things to think about. Or are there other things that people would be looking for in particular? Well, if you have other ideas, feel free to share and put them in the chat. So one of the things I think that we could do really quickly is if you go back to the Learning Hub and notice at the top, I'm not again discouraging US roller coasters, but we've brought this here to the Stat Chat before, and we've done it in so many places. I thought we could take a look at the Census at School investigation. How many of you here, has anyone ever used the Census at School resource with students or even, okay, great. So people have seen this before. So would someone like to just describe, maybe what it is and how you've used it with students? I'd love to hear how other people have used it with students.
I'll talk. So it's a database, a worldwide database of students. I believe it's mostly like K through 12 or maybe middle school through high school students who put in their own personal data. And then you can sample from it. It has like a random sampler and answer questions or look for relationships with the data. And the kids love it because they like to put their own data in, and they also like to see the data from other states, other countries, other age groups.
Mhm.
That's a great description. And I think that oftentimes students do enjoy, they're answering the questions themselves. And so it gets them involved in part of the data collection. So if you go into the data investigation, that Census at Schools, data investigation 2, and read on your own time that first page, but go to the second page, and then you'll see some background here. You can read that on your own too. I want us to get to the third page, and I'll drop the link in a minute when I get there. So on the third page, there is a data file. I thought it was on the third page, where there is already a random, it might be the fourth, a random sample of I think 500 students. Yes, it's right here. So I am going to I will open this up and then I will share the file. But once that opens up, it opens up in a CODAP file that looks like this. I'm going to share this link just in case people like me were I'm trying to get back to the chat. I'll drop it in the chat. So if you open this, okay, well, I'm trying to, oh, here it is finally. If you open this up, you can get to this link too. So in this data file, it opens up as a CODAP file. This is one of the choices that you can do in this particular data investigation. And so this is an example of where there's a sample of 500 students that are randomly selected that answered these questions. And if you go over to this box right here, you get some information, and that you see that these are students in grades 4 through 12, and they were the ones that anonymously completed this online survey. So there's really interesting attributes in here, some that your students would be more or less interested in. But I think the nature of having students answer the questions and submit their own data, and real students are submitting data, brings up this authentic piece that sometimes is missing. And I think even if we look at, I'm gonna look at an attribute in a minute, but I think no matter, anytime I've used this set, no matter what attribute you're looking at, you're gonna see some of the interesting things that happen when we're using real data. So if you hover over the attributes, most of you probably have seen CODAP. I think I asked that earlier. And you can see what the attribute is. If you want to make these tables, the columns, wider or smaller. If you want to make your table bigger or smaller, you can grab, the corner here. And so one of the things that I think I was talking about a lot when we first came on, when I was just chit-chatting with people, was coming back from school pickup. So one of the attributes in here is related to travel time to school. So there's a couple actually. So there's one related to the type of transportation, and then there's one related to travel time. So one of the things students might be interested in, I was kind of curious about this because I was just talking about this. So what might be the typical travel time for the students that responded to our survey? So I already have I already have a graph that's open in the back. And so if you've used CodeApp before, you know that this shows us all of our cases that we see in the table. And I'm just going to put the count of the cases up here. It should be 500. And right now there's no order. We've not structured it around an attribute. These cases are randomly distributed on our graph. But I am interested in maybe typical travel time to school. So I'm going to drag that and drop that on my x-axis. And what's the first thing that we notice when we're looking at this distribution of data, when we're looking at travel time? What stands out to you the most when you see it right away?
Got some outliers.
Some outliers. And so this is what's so wonderful about having students like submit data. I mean, sometimes in real life, there are these anomaly cases that are very different, right? But this case right here, it really, to think 10,000 minutes, I mean, it is by boat, right? And so you do have to consider, whether someone might actually be traveling that amount to get to school, but it does seem like that could be unrealistic. I mean, it seems like this one over here, where this person is traveling, and they're traveling by, can't move it over, I'm trying to move it. My mouse is, they're also traveling by boat. It could be that you make the decision, well, maybe those things are real times, but then you could also think these are just things where people have inputted the wrong data. And you'll especially see that with heights, where it's not possible to have a height of like 5 centimeters. So one of the really nice things about CodeApp is if we think that maybe these are data entries that are wrong, or if we're going to make a decision about them, we could just hide these. So by clicking on the eyeball, we could hide these selected cases, and then we can still look at the data. And we could still see this 180 minutes. And it could be that this one, there could be an argument we should keep this one. Maybe it really does take, this is another person traveling by boat, right? Maybe it really does take that amount of time. So one of the things that might be interesting is, before we consider the distribution, we could also think about, well, does it matter like what that mode of transportation is? Or we could just go straight to thinking about if we want to know something about the measures of center and the variation, we can find out if there are outliers. So if we wanted a distribution that shows a box plot, we can select that. We can add the mean to it. And then we can also think about, again, we have all of these outliers here. Is it the case that these things are really outliers, or it really does take this long? We could travel, we could look at the way that people travel and see if that makes a difference. So very easily, no matter what situation you're in with students, you can use data like this to start asking some questions that maybe students are interested in, and you can ask lots of even more complicated questions. So one that I think it would be very interesting for people to do, because we don't have time to do on our own, is to think about, one of the ones I remember always doing with students was measuring height and arm span. I don't know how many times I've done that, right? But if you look at the measurements in here and do this, there are some really interesting things that happen. And so it gives students an opportunity to actually think about the data that's there. And CodeApp gives you the ability to think about, well, I have this data that maybe is a data point that's not right. Can I hide this case? How does that impact if there's an association between height and arm span? Can I start looking at gender? There's lots of different things that you can also explore. And I encourage you to think about other questions you can explore. I had just wanted to show, just give you a flavor, because we spent a lot of time talking about the platform. Holly Lynn, was there anything you wanted to share about the platform?
Yeah, I just want
about using this particular.
Yeah, if
tool?
you could, if you go ahead and stop screen sharing, and then I'll just like switch over to me.
I
Let's
wanted to do the height and arm span, but I didn't have enough time. That it's really interesting with
Yeah.
the data that's in this particular data set.
I just really wanted to kind of highlight quickly the kind of support. So, teachers are going through these investigations together, and depending on their comfort level in using some of these different tools, or if they've never been to the Census at School website, even selecting the random data and taking it into, if they wanted to sample their own data. So we give people the option of doing things, but we use videos. Some videos are made by us, some videos are made by others. So for example, here's a video made by Pip Arnold about how to download data from the census, how to get a random sample from the Census at School. So we use resources that others have created to help support teachers in learning different things. And we also know that if a teacher is a new user, they might have gotten to that transportation problem, for example, and not really like known what to do. Even just, talking through that. And so we have other videos that actually, like this particular video is animated, but it represents the work of real kids and what kids have done, particularly around that transportation problem, because we think that data is particularly interesting in the fact that there's usually some outliers that you have to kind of deal with. And that gets at that processing data that brings that in of like, oh, wait a minute, I need to filter out some of these cases. And so it's opportunities to kind of highlight different particular moves. And in our data investigations, we try to, by bolding different phases and using the icons, try to connect back to the framework. So we've gotten a lot of compliments on how colorful the platform is and things like that. Our colors are purposely trying to orient people to different phases and to connect things together. And hopefully, aside from being appealing, they end up being obvious in ways of helping teachers kind of have a connected whole as they go through things. But as you saw, we use a lot of ASA resources. ASA.
This is a guest speaker. So if you go through some of the videos where we talk to experts, you'll see Chris featured in many.
This is a superstar.
This is a superstar. Those videos have paid off. But I had tried to explain earlier, Holly Lynn, that we also try to use open resources. And so that's one of the reasons
that's why we use so much ASA, because
we use
putting it out.
ASA, CodeApp, there's lots of other choices of things you can use, but we do try to link to things that we know have been vetted and that other people, who know a lot are putting efforts into, and that are open sources.
And we have a pretty big advisory board that has helped us all along the way of finding resources and vetting those and giving us feedback on stuff. So
and the other thing that I would share too, I think the only other thing that I would share about the platform is there are some other interesting features that I didn't go through that you can find on your own, where if you find things that are really interesting to you, you can save those as a playlist. So like basically you'll see that little plus sign and you can save that resource and you can create a list. And so if you're working with colleagues, even you can, save a list, and then it's not just for yourself, right? Like you could save your own list so you can always go back to things, but then you can also save a list that it could be used to help recommend resources to other. So first it's saving the resource is what Holly Lynn was showing by clicking, and then you can add it and create a playlist.
Right. Yeah. So I
That
can.
will, where it's
Yeah,
basically a way to organize the things that you've saved. So I've saved these things and now I want to put them into a list. Teachers, I think, have also said that and so that doesn't really have anything to do with statistics, but it's special to the platform in teachers talking about it's helpful to be able to save those resources and then put them in a list together. I think those are really the only other things about the platform that I think.
Yeah. And what we envision is that, teachers, so like here, I created a playlist of videos and handouts that I'd like to use with students. So things that I found across different places that I think I can take directly into my classroom. And I put them in a playlist for myself, so that I don't have to like hunt and peck and go and find these things. And then if I wanted to, I could take this playlist and so like this playlist here, I've made public. Whereas, my stuff, I've only put one thing in there so far, but I haven't shared that publicly, so that I'm the only one that can see that. But if you go to public playlists, you can see that I can see somebody else shared a data investigation resources playlist. And so I can see those that other people have shared. So in a way of being able to personalize it to yourself, but then share it out to the community. So as a facilitator in a district, like imagine you were putting together a PLT and you were the leader, you could go through and actually pick a few things that you want people to come in here and look at and put them into a playlist. And give them directions on how to go and find that playlist so that they would all go and look at the same things before maybe a team meeting or something. So.
Yeah, so we encourage you to go in and we hopefully, we never save enough time for a data exploration. But I really hope that you go in and take advantage, even if it's not the data investigation that's useful to you. And we'll just continue to build and add more things to the platform as we can. So reach out if you have any questions, and thank you so much for your time today. I don't know and thank you to the ASA for inviting us to come chat with you guys today too. We appreciate all the things that the teachers do, and we appreciate all of the work that you guys do in the community as well.
Well, Holly Lynn and Gemma, the same goes for you. You have been crusaders in developing materials for teachers, and I'm very excited about the platform going live now. I think it's going to be great. And especially as many states are changing their standards now and incorporating more statistics and data science standards, I think InStep's going to become invaluable for our teachers. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, it's 5:30, so we got to try to keep it to an hour. So I'm going to tell you goodbye. Much success as you finish your school year. I know, especially if you're AP Stat teachers, I'm sure you're getting ready for the exam that's coming up soon. It's hard to believe it's time for that. But we've been very excited to have you with us this year.
Yeah.
And we'll work on that AP Stats and course specific problem that we won't get solved in this year.
Well, there's still plenty of time, and apparently the AP course is being redesigned right now, so it's going to be interesting to see what the future course looks like.
Yeah, hopefully the right people are at the table.
I hope so too. All right, well, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris and Michael. I appreciate, oh,
Hi.
hi, Chris. Chris, do you want to turn off the recording?
Thank you. Got it.